Hey folks, welcome back to another episode here at Time Out Kitchen. Today we're going to be making some Chinese braised pork belly. This pork has a dark, rich flavor, sticky, perfect on rice, and also has some beautiful aromatics built in, so this is literally the perfect cold weather dish. But like any braised meat, it takes a bit of time. But don't worry, like every episode here on Time Out Kitchen, I'll be showing you exactly how much time this takes to put together and how much it costs. But since this does take a bit of time, let's get to the ingredients. So naturally, we're going to start with some pork bellies. So here you can see I've got about 2 or 3 pounds of pork belly, and you can see a beautiful marbling here. This is exactly what you're looking for. You'll also notice that the skin is on, there's a stamp on it, and there are some hairs. But don't worry, you can save this for later and make something like some homemade pork rinds. Next, go ahead and grab your aromatics, which are going to include these 5 very delicious ingredients. So we'll start with our 2 bird's eye chilies. These are going to add a nice, beautiful hit of spice to this dish. Next, you'll grab yourself 2 or 3 pieces of star anise. This can give it a nice kind of licoricey flavor. It's super delicious. You also want a few bay leaves to go into your braising liquid as well. And then you want about 4 or 5 pieces of garlic sliced thinly. And then you'll want a large piece of ginger cut into about 1/4-inch slices. And trust me, this is going to be an absolute flavor bomb for your pork. Oh, and also you want about 4 or 5 green onions to throw into the pot as well. Next, you want to grab yourself a half a cup of some high quality soy sauce. This is going to add the salt that you need for this dish as well as a little bit of color. And to really boost that color, you're going to want to grab yourself a half a cup of dark soy sauce. Now, if you've never used this, it does not impart a ton of flavor, but it is going to create that dark, rich color that you traditionally think of. So go ahead and make sure that you grab some of this at your local grocery store. To that, you'll add a half a cup of this Chinese cooking wine, which I am not even going to try to pronounce. But this does have about 10% alcohol in it, and it's going to do a lot of work in just kind of adding some complexity and kind of mellowing out the rest of our flavors. You'll then want 1.5 to 2 cups of water, or enough to cover the pork. For a much needed hit of sweetness, and again to add some more color, you're going to use some brown sugar. About 1/4 cup or so should do. And finally, some Chinese 5-spice. Now, I recommend about 1 good tablespoon of it, but depending how much pork you're making, about 2 or 3 tablespoons will be enough. Just make sure you have everything nice and covered. And there you go. Those are all of the ingredients you're going to need to make this delicious braised pork belly. Now, I will say I do have some rice already made from yesterday, and I also will be making a little bit of bok choy to add, but that's all you're really going to need. Oh, and speaking of things you're going to need some of this sweet, sweet B-roll.
Perfect.
Alright, with that beautiful B-roll out of the way, go ahead and grab your pork belly. Now you'll notice that this has a bit of moisture on it, so we're going to go ahead and pat this dry. So for that, grab the humble and always useful paper towel and just give this a quick pat down. Once dry, it's time to remove that top layer of skin, so go ahead, grab the edge, use your knife, and just gently cut through. Now, I'm no butcher, and this did take me a little bit of time, but I do recommend that you also take your time doing this just to make sure you don't cut through any of the meat. That's important because we want to keep as much of that fat on top as possible. With the skin removed, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. And don't discard that skin, guys, because you can boil it and then use it to fry and make your own pork rinds. Anyways, now it's time to begin portioning our pork belly, so begin cutting this into 1-inch strips. And you should have something like this. You can really see the marbling here, and we're going to have a piece of pork belly that is going to render down beautifully. But we've got a few more to cut, so go ahead and get that done. And don't worry about getting the perfect cut because we're going to be cutting this down into cubes. Once you've perfectly sliced your pristine pork, it is time to cut this into smaller cubes. So go ahead and slap a piece down and begin to cut this into bite-sized chunks. Now you can make these chunks as big or as small as you want, but I do recommend that you keep them somewhat large because all that fat is going to render down and this is going to shrink considerably. So when you're done cutting everything up, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. A mountain of pork that is ready to be braised down. Again, the perfect size for our braising, which is exactly what we have to get to now. So turn your pan to medium and let this sizzle. Now you don't need any oil with this, there's plenty of fat that's going to come out as you can see here, but what we're really looking for is a bit of browning, and once that happens you can go ahead and stir this all up. This shouldn't take more than 4 or 5 minutes, so just keep an eye on it and make sure that nothing burns. Once you've flipped every piece, go ahead and let this cook for another 3 or 4 minutes. By this point, both sides should be seared, and you can let this cook for another minute or 2, making sure that everything has a nice deep brown color. Once you're satisfied with the brownness on your pork, go ahead and grab a slotted spoon and remove the pork as needed, leaving some of the fat left over so we can cook the rest of our ingredients. I'd recommend scooping this into a colander that's in a bowl so all of the extra fat can drain off. In any case, with that extra fat left in the pot, it's time to add our aromatics directly to this mixture. Your aromatics are only going to need to cook for about a minute or so make sure that you are always mixing this so nothing burns. But don't forget to listen to that lovely sizzling sound. So after about 2 minutes, go ahead and add your pork back into the bowl before finally realizing that there is a very obvious smudge on your lens, so go ahead and clean that up. Yeah, there we go. And it's now time to add your Chinese 5-spice, so go ahead and grab that beautiful spice blend and throw in about 2 or 3 tablespoons, or as much as you see fit. Then just give this a quick mix to make sure you incorporate all of those beautiful flavors before adding about a half a cup of water to deglaze the pan. With that half a cup of water added, you're going to want to go ahead and add your 1/4 cup of brown sugar. Then just go ahead and mix this in, and you should start to see the colors and the kind of stickiness that you would expect from a Chinese braised pork belly. So at this stage, I'd recommend that you let this reduce by about 1/3. It should take about 5 or 6 minutes, and then go ahead and stir this one more time before adding your half cup of soy sauce. Again, this will add a nice salty flavor as well as a bit of color. Then it's time to add our half cup of Chinese cooking wine, followed by a half a cup of dark soy sauce that's really going to enhance the color. Give that a quick stir, and now you can really see this starting to come together. At this stage, you can add the rest of your water. This is about 1 cup or so, or basically until your pork is mostly covered. Then it's simply a matter of bringing this to a boil, covering it, and letting it cook on low heat for about 2 hours or until tender. So put that lid on and let's go prep some of our other ingredients. Now you might be thinking, what other ingredients? Well, at the beginning of this video, I did mention that we'd be doing some bok choy as well as some side garnishes, so let's get to it. Now, I am a big fan of bok choy with a lot of dishes, and with any Asian dish, this is going to go amazing. So grab yourself some fresh baby bok choy, and then go ahead and cut this into quarters. Now, the nice thing with cutting into quarters is you get kind of a bigger bite, and it's also fairly easy to clean. And because we're going to steam this, you're going to be able to cook quite a lot of it. It will cook down, and it just has a nice, simple flavor. So go ahead and cut the rest of your bok choy before moving on to your green onion. So for your green onion, just take the bottoms off and then cut this in half. We're then going to cut lengthwise and then make these long, thin slices. This is just to make it look prettier. It's not actually going to change anything. I just think this looks a little bit nicer on this dish. What you're looking for is something that looks a little bit like this. These sort of thin matchstick-like pieces of green onion. So with the green onions chopped and the dramatic pour completed, grab a ramekin and clean up your mess because it is time to boil off some bok choy. So grab yourself a medium saucepan, your overflowing bowl of bok choy, and go ahead and dump that in there. Add a pinch of kosher salt, a 1/4 cup of water, and then put this on high heat. Now you're looking to steam this for about 2 or 3 minutes, so go ahead and pop that lid on because with the magic of editing, it is time to check our pork, which is looking quite delicious. You can see that the sauce has reduced a lot and that we have a beautiful rich color, which is exactly what we're looking for. So give this a quick stir, and optionally you can also go ahead and grab a spoon and remove some of that excess oil. I'm doing this to obviously speed up the process, but also to remove some of that excess fat. And you can see with that oil removed, we have a beautiful final product. It has a deep, rich red color, deeply aromatic, and beautifully sticky. So with the lid off, keep stirring for a few minutes, and then go ahead and grab your slotted spoon, because we want to make sure that we remove any of that excess fat. Then just transfer everything into a bowl and then show off your final product. These little guys are quite literally some pork flavor bombs. And before we show this off, let's grab the appropriate utensils, because we got to check for like flavor or something. Totally not just going to eat this because I'm hungry. And come on, this wouldn't make you hungry, would it? Beautiful, fatty, rich, tender piece of pork belly? Yeah, me either. Now, our first taste test will confirm our suspicion that this is in fact delicious. But don't let your appetite get the better of you because we have to plate this up. So go ahead and grab yourself your most appropriate bowl, and to our bowl we'll add some of that leftover white rice that we've heated up, and then we'll gently lay down some of our steamed bok choy. I recommend laying this neatly to one side because we need room for our pork, which as you can see is looking very delicious. It's deep in color, has a beautiful stickiness to it, and has an amazing aroma. So go ahead and lay down a nice big scoop of that into your bowl. Realize that that scoop was enough. Go ahead and grab a few extra pieces before putting on some garnish, in this case our green onion. And that's looking really pretty, but I think we're missing one final touch, and that is going to be some toasted white sesame seeds. You don't need a lot here, guys, just go ahead and throw those on. And there you go, guys, there is a beautiful bowl of Chinese braised pork belly ready for consumption. This dish is beautiful, simple, and delicious. This whole dish took about 2 hours and 10 minutes with prep time included. And the best part is that this meal won't set you back more than $1.50 per serving. So now it's finally time to dig in, and I mean, look at the colors, the contrast. This beautiful piece of pork, sticky, delicious, has a nice balance of that garlic, that ginger, the spice, and of course a little hint of that sweetness from our brown sugar. This dish was surprisingly easy to make and tremendously delicious, and I do hope that you try to make this at home on your own. Now, I'm not going to make you suffer and watch me eat this entire delicious bowl. I'll put my chopsticks down and just simply say thank you so much for watching until the end of the video. I do hope you try this. It is seriously delicious. As always, thumbs if you liked it, subs if you loved it. We will see you in the next one.